My name is David Arietti, and I'm an adjunct professor of biology at various colleges in the Chicago area, and my main interests are general biology, environmental affairs, and animal behavior. Although my main goal is environmental science, therefore I'm interested in saving the environment and preserving whatever we have left for future generations. And this is why I decided to try to do something about it, because at the moment we see the world is in total chaos, mainly because of political issues and other issues associated with that, such as warfare, racism, poverty, and of course environmental destruction. And it is these issues that I want to deal with. We know we're doing a lot of damage to the environment, but we're doing it anyway. What I'm going to do is show you some affluent people who are really worth, actually, all four of the ones I'm going to show you are actually worth more than many countries combined. The first issue I want to talk to you about these five people. Now, I don't think many people know who, in fact, is the richest person on the earth. It is not Elon Musk. It is Bernard Arnault. He's a French businessman, and he's worth a lot more than all the other people, but he's only worth 26 billion more than the second richest man, Jeff Bezos. And then Jeff Bezos is followed by Warren Buffett with about 105 billion. Elon Musk has 109 million. Well, actually they're out of order, but it doesn't matter. And Bill Gates has 107 billion. So all of these are billionaires, and I should say that Warren Buffett and Bill Gates are the impoverished ones here, because they have only 105 and 107 billion dollars, where the lowest amount of the other is 190. Now the point I'm making is these people would be good if they would help a lot of poor countries, especially those in Africa, and of course the poorest country here in the hemisphere of the United States, which is Haiti. Okay, and Haiti unfortunately has been suffering many catastrophes, such as an earthquake, a hurricane, and disaster due to their political situation. And I feel that it's incumbent upon these people to help them, okay? Now, we know a lot of these problems. When you have this much money, they can actually do some good for the world instead of just keeping the money. Now, I know Bill Gates, he's trying to help. He's donating a lot of money, especially for vaccinations of various diseases, especially in Africa and possibly in Asia. But to me, that's not good enough. When you have this much money, you can help the whole world. All of these people are worth together almost $1 trillion. That's around $810 billion, which is over 80% of $1 trillion, okay? Just think what we can do with that much money, okay? Many years ago, I read a book called The Ecology of Commerce. And in that book, we mentioned the fact it only took $10 trillion to build every bridge, house, and everything else in the world. Now we see four people have roughly 1/11 of all that. So as you can see, we do have a problem which could be solved if we put our resources in the right places. What I'm going to do now is show you a little poverty here, and I think that this poverty should wake people up. If you look here we see a bunch of poor children. They don't even have the basics of life. They're all looking for food to keep them well nourished and healthy. This is something that I think everybody who has some money should participate. However, I do believe that the five richest people that I mentioned earlier should be able to help tremendously. And maybe my idea is to go to these countries direct, go with tractors, seeds, and things like this, which will help plant and grow the crops and make these people have food security instead of food insecurity, which is a term that we keep hearing now a lot. Speaking of food insecurity, there is something that you should watch by looking at this picture here, okay? If you look at this picture, you will see that these poor kids have swollen stomachs. Now you might think, boy, if they have swollen stomachs, they're fat. No, that is not fat. That is caused by a protein deficiency disease called kwashiorkor, which is a Ghana term, and Ghana is a country in North Africa. And kwashiorkor means the evil that strikes the first child after the second child is born. Now, what exactly does that mean? That means the following. When a baby is born, the mother is breastfeeding the child, okay? Therefore, the breast milk has protein and other things the babies need. However, once the second child is born, the mother neglects the first child and starts feeding the second child. And she's going to give the first child food which isn't nutritious, okay? And then that lacks a lot of protein. And when these kids lack the protein, it's no good for the bodies. The bodies are going to produce a fluid in their stomach area called edema, and then it's going to increase, and that's why they have these swollen bellies, okay? And we studied this when we talk about hunger, and this is a real catastrophe, okay? And you're asking, well, why do these people have all these children if they can't afford it? Well, I'm not going into that. Obviously, it's a problem, but the fact it exists means that we have to do something about it, and I don't have all the answers here. Here we see more poverty, okay, in various countries. As you can see, I don't think Bill Gates or Warren Buffett would live in a house like this, okay? Notice the railroad tracks, okay? This is probably a town in Africa, and it's a pretty bad situation. Now, if we look at certain countries by their wealth, we see Luxembourg, which is the #1 country based on their GDP, okay, $141,000. Burundi, which is, of course, Luxembourg's in Europe, Burundi's in Africa, okay, $865. Now, many people earn that much here in America in one day. And then the United States is #8 on the list. Burundi is number 192 out of roughly 193, 194 countries. After the problem of affluence and poverty, I want to talk about racism, okay? This is another issue which is infecting, I don't like the word affecting, it's infecting many countries, especially the US, and we have a racism problem, which is encouraged, I'm sorry to say, by the Republican Party and his so-called leader, of which whose name I don't want to mention, but everyone knows who it is, but I'm not going to mention it. And racism is a curse upon the United States. It's getting worse. I don't like to blame people, but I blame the Republican Party as much as I have to say. They are not helping the situation any. Okay? And I feel it's incumbent upon me just to say the way it is or the way I feel. And if somebody wants to rebut this, I can always have a conversation with them in a nice, orderly, calm way. Okay? And that's the way every issue should be discussed, without violence and just discussion. Here is something interesting about racism. Racism thrives because the silence of the majority and their reluctance to stand up. I just happened to see this picture today, which is brilliant. It says, racism is a pandemic too. And of course, right now, we're in the middle of March in 2023. And at least for now, we believe most of the COVID-19 crisis is over. I don't know if it's 100% over. I have my doubts, and maybe there's another new virus waiting in the wings. But I feel that whatever the case, racism is a pandemic upon the United States, made worse by a political party beginning with the letter R that I just mentioned. And that's just my opinion, but I'm sure it's the opinion of other people as well, and I feel it must be said, because I do believe this is what's happening. Anyway, so as we see, it is a pandemic, and this is something we should all take seriously. And why? What is the main issue of this? Well, some people think because they have light skin, they're better than people with darker skin. Now this, of course, is a fallacy. Why should we think we're any better than another group of people? And I want to point out that many brilliant scientists and discoverers of new products and new medicinal things such as drugs and equipment were also discovered and invented by people not of the white color, okay? So, let me just show you a couple more slides of racism. As we have seen in the story of Emmett Till. Emmett Till, it's a famous story about what happened to him. And he was actually born in Chicago. He had some relatives in Mississippi. He went to Mississippi and he bought something at a store, which was a ma and pa candy store or general store, and he kind of whistled at the proprietor, who happened to be a woman, and she complained about his whistling, and the husband and some other people, as well as her, went to pick up Emmett Till, and then they tortured him to death, okay? All because he was black. And this is really a terrible situation, especially in the state of Mississippi, which unfortunately has senators which don't seem to care about the blacks. And I think all they've ever lately have elected were white senators who, in my opinion, are not doing much to help the blacks because they are not of the same color. Okay, now that's just my opinion, but I feel that that's what's going on, and they also feel that this has to stop. This is the problem. You know, evil happens because people don't speak up, and this is one of the evil. And we heard about this during World War II when Hitler was trying to destroy the Jews and other people, and a lot of people didn't speak up, okay? First of all, many didn't know about it, but then if they knew about it, they would have spoken up. Remember, you must speak up or else nothing's going to happen. You know, if you know about something that's occurring and you don't speak up, you're almost as guilty as that, okay? And so we have to change our attitudes about all these issues. Now, one of the biggest tragedies that the human race has done since its inception, since the creation of the human race, is wars. According to the literature, ever since we can remember, going back thousands of years, there has been over 10,000 wars, okay? Now, my opinion about wars is the following. I believe it's in the genes. Why do people fight each other? And of course, as we approach the year 3000, I know now it's only 2023, the weapons are getting worse, more violent, more painful, and more ridiculous, okay? And I believe this has something to do with the genes. I have no way of proving it, but the fact we've had wars ever since Cain killed Abel, this has been going on. Now, there's been hundreds of wars all the time. Ever since I was born in 1945, in fact, I was born at the end of a war. And then we had another war following that, and following that, and following that. I don't think there's been a time since I've been alive when the U.S. was not in war. There may have been 1 or 2 years, but there's always a war of some kind, not necessarily involving the U.S., but involving other countries as well. They have internal conflicts, such as those in Africa. I just want to bring up war briefly. And as you can see here, there's been over 10,000 wars. And by the way, I didn't make this number up. I got it from literature. And probably the most famous war that's going on now for no reason other than to feed the ego of a person who lives in Russia, happens to be the president. This is making the news every day. And if you look at some of these pictures, all you see is destruction. Now, these were not military targets. These are apartment houses of people who want to live their lives. But due to the mind of one person. He wanted to destroy them because he feels the Ukraine doesn't exist. Well, if they don't exist, how come they are fighting back? You can't fight something that doesn't exist, right? So this is terrible. And this is something I have that was bothering me, not only because of this war, but because of every war. We build and then we destroy. This is the issue. Here we see the bombed out buildings in Dresden, Germany, right after World War II, that I'm afraid the US was involved in, and there really, as far as I've been reading, no real reason that made any sense why they bombed these places. They killed thousands of people, and to me, no matter what reason they give, wouldn't make any sense, okay? Why destroy all these buildings? Don't forget, these were homes, schools, hospitals, libraries, whatever cities have. As I tell everybody, there's only one thing in this world that makes sense, and that is a machine that changes dollar bills. And if you think about that, you know I'm basically right. Here, let me show you some more. Here we see what's going on. This is the dead of Vietnamese war. Why did we go to Vietnam? Well, ask somebody. There was no really good reason. I've heard other reasons, but none of them make any sense, okay? Here we have another result of war. A few weeks ago, there was a big earthquake, a 7.8 magnitude earthquake that destroyed a lot of Syria and Turkey. They're right next to each other. And the area was already exacerbated by war. They had a civil war and by winter. This is absurd. And then there was an argument about helping countries bring in supplies because of the war that was going on. So even during or after the earthquake, they wouldn't allow supplies to get in. Here we see Raqqa, Syria. Again, these are bombed out apartment houses. For what? They used to be nice apartments, okay? Now, how can I say nice? Even though I was never there, notice they had a function, they all had rooms, everything was fine and dandy, the roads weren't littered with rubble, and now this is all you see is total destruction. This is caused by the human race. This is something I still don't understand. Why do they build and then they destroy? I doubt anybody can come up with a good reason. The same as in Dresden. True, Dresden happened over 50 years ago, and this happened recently. We still have the same mentality. This is why I believe it's in the genes. Nuclear weapons are the most destructive, inhumane, and indiscriminate weapons ever created. We must ban and dismantle them. I feel that using nuclear weapons on a civilian population or on any population is actually the most immoral thing one can do. Now, our president happened to be Truman at the time. After he dropped the bomb, he said he didn't lose any sleep over it. Well, if he would have listened to me or see the aftermath as we know now, maybe he would have changed his tune. My opinion is if you wanted to use a nuclear bomb without much damage, do it off the coast of Japan and show them the damage that the U.S. can do. So that could have ended the war without destroying over 100,000 lives. Well, actually, there was more than that. They say 100,000 died, and of course, many were burnt, wounded, and other horrific problems to their health. Nuclear disarmament is the act of reducing or eliminating nuclear weapons. Its end state can also be a nuclear weapons-free world, in which nuclear weapons are completely eliminated. The term denuclearization is also used to describe the process leading to complete nuclear disarmament. And this is something we should all fight for, especially the nuclear nations. But due to the way the politics is, I doubt much is going to be accomplished. Okay, this is something we have to do now. Now, I want to talk to you about one more issue, and then we do have a solution to these problems, or at least we have an attempt of making a solution, and I'll tell you what it is. But I want to talk to you about one more insult to the planet, and that is deforestation. Now, deforestation, not only of the Amazon, as I have here, as you can see, deforested areas there, but all over the world, especially the zone of the equator, because that's where they have the rainforest, okay? And one of the crops that's grown in the rainforest is palm oil, okay? Well, actually, palm trees to make palm oil. And we find palm oil in virtually every product we produce in the United States. It's in candy, it's in syrups, it's in sauces, it's in lots of things. And making palm oil is helping to destroy habitats, okay? And habitats especially of a primate called the orangutan. And by the way, orangutan literally means people of the forest. And because of the rainforest destruction are agricultural expansion, okay, in the case of palm oil and other crops, wood extraction, which is a polite word of saying cutting down the trees, charcoal production, which means to burn the charcoal without oxygen, to burn the wood without oxygen, making charcoal, infrastructure expansion such as roads and urbanization, all caused by illegal logging, mining for gold and other minerals, which are only valuable because humans give them value, okay? If wood was valuable, then of course, we try to get every single piece of wood we can and sell it, okay? All these are because of human evaluations. And then of course, palm oil plantations, they cut down the trees, the habitats of the orangutan, and they grow crops, and they don't give a damn about the orangutan. It said 50,000 have been killed over the last few years. Over 50,000 orangutans on the island of Borneo and Sumatra, which, if you don't know where it is, it's just above Australia there, okay? Before we hit Southeast Asia, it's above Australia, all right? And they have a lot of deforestation because these countries live on the equator area where the rainforests are. Orangutans whose habitats have been destroyed often enter villages and plantations in search of food, where they are captured or killed by farmers who treat them as pests, okay? This obviously is pretty heartbreaking, and it really disturbs me. So this is something you should be aware of, okay? And here we see palm oil seeds, okay? And the fruit of the palm oil. And here we see devastation, okay? Here's the rainforest, and as we see, they cut a lot of it down to raise plantations. And here we see the sweet, cuddly orangutan with his mother, okay? Just like our babies too. You forget, they're organisms, they probably feel the same way we do, okay? They have feelings too, so beware of that. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have an organization to protect orangutans. Over there, what you see is the New Horizons satellite. That took off on June 19th, 2006, and arrived at Pluto 9 years later on July 14th, 2015. And what that has done, and it actually did its job. It arrived safely. It took wonderful pictures of Pluto, of which I'm going to show you now. So what does this mean, and what does this have to do with what I'm talking about? Well, it has a lot to do with what I'm talking about. First of all, here we see a beautiful, clear picture. It takes a wonderful picture as if we had the space station and taken a picture of the moon. And why is this important now? Because here's the issue. If we put our minds to something, we can end all this nonsense and chaos that's going on the planet right now, like ending nuclear weapons, making the poor countries a little bit more wealthier so they don't have to suffer. And here too in America, we worry about these people coming to the US to seek asylum. Well, why do they seek asylum? Because their countries are in chaos. So maybe if we help prevent this chaos and stop it by using our so-called billionaires to help, we can solve the problem. That the fact they have billions, and if they gave even most of their money away, guess what? They'd still be billionaires, which I'm sure is more money than most people have. So anyway, so if we devote 100% of our effort into doing something like NASA did to send off the New Horizons satellite to take wonderful pictures of Pluto, then I think we can virtually do anything, okay? And so that's all I have to say, and let's just hope we get something accomplished before we destroy ourselves. Thank you for listening.